Welcome to the groundbreaking news program that delves into the heart of Mormonism, your weekly window into the unique intersection of news, history, and culture that resonates with the tapestry of Mormonism. So whether you're tuning in from the heart of Utah or joining us from around the world, your favorite news program starts now, where news meets insight and the stories of our faith unfold.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Mormon Newscast. It is Monday, December 9th, 2024. I'm Radio Free Mormon. I'll be the anchor for this program. I'm joined by my co-reporters, Rebecca Biblioteca and Bill Reel. How are you tonight?
We are fabulous.
Excellent.
Well, I'm glad to know it. Is there anything that either of you want to say up front? I know that there's a very special announcement that you have, Rebecca, which makes you once again a prophetess.
I'm always a prophetess. I have one announcement. I saw Wicked for the second time over the weekend. Have you guys seen that yet?
I have.
It was amazing, didn't you think?
Well, yes, I did. What I can tell from your comment is that you did not watch Mormonism After Dark last Friday when I just went on and raved about it.
I wish I would have. No, I'm still battling, which is now turned into a sinus infection. So I go to bed at like 7:30. I may have to go to bed during the newscast tonight. But I saw it with a group, including Dr. John Lundwall. We all know him. He's our favorite. And he was openly weeping the entire time. It was so moving.
That's embarrassing.
It was very embarrassing.
He's going to have to turn in his man card if he's not careful.
It was a fun experience. Everyone should go see it if you haven't.
Okay. All right. So let's look at tonight's stories. And here we have them. There's a new Book of Mormon intro, or is there? LDS membership, boom. Fairview Town Council Temple update. You know that'll be Rebecca. And your ancestors need you. All right, so let's get started, shall we? The first story is mine, this new Book of Mormon introduction. Oh, this was the announcement.
This is the announcement. I threw you off by talking about Wicked. Yeah. No, this is breaking news. This just happened. They put out the Golden Globe nominations. And I've been saying, I think on pretty much every newscast, this is headed for an Oscar or at least something for Hugh Grant, who is incredible. And sure enough, and this often, kind of put your finger on the pulse of who might be headed for the Oscar. Hugh Grant is now a Golden Globe nominee for Best Performance by a Male Actor in a Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy for Heretic. Now, I've been posting about this and people have been saying comedy, musical, and it is a dark comedy. If you're familiar with that genre, I'm sure you guys are, where, there's a lighter treatment of some more macabre elements, for that juxtaposition and to make the audience uncomfortable. So believe it or not, it's in the comedy genre that he's nominated. But this is really exciting, especially since I've lately seen a lot of posts on faithful social media saying that this movie was a bomb. It's going nowhere. It's over. It was nothing. And again, I feel like I'm a prophetess. It's not. It's on its way.
You are.
I feel like I am.
You are. And I don't know if it was a bomb or not, but it was certainly no 6 days in August.
No, not at all. So anyway, very exciting. We'll have to keep watching and see if he is indeed. The last Golden Globe he received was for Four Weddings and a Funeral. You guys could probably guess that way back in the 90s. And we'll see if he gets this, and we'll see if it goes on for some kind of Oscar nomination.
Yes, I expect so.
I hope
so. And I also expect a lot of Oscar nominations for Wicked.
I think so.
All right. So going to this very first story, the new introduction to the Book of Mormon flap. And I'm using flap in the oldish kind of way. It's a panic that occurred over this introduction to the Book of Mormon, the new one. Now, here on the left is the introduction that we have had in the Book of Mormon since 1981. That was when this new version came off the press that was all cross-referenced with the Bible and with everything else in the world. And we've got an introduction there that was written by Bruce R. McConkie. It's been there ever since, with one minor but somewhat significant change. And I think that was in 2006 when it changed the Native American are the primary, or what was it? The Lamanites are the primary ancestors of the Native Americans. Is that it?
Or did it just say were the ancestors, and then it changed to among?
Among the.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So DNA had its own influence on it. And then It was announced last week, actually last Tuesday, I think it was December 3rd, in an article in LDS Living, that there was going to be a new 2024 Book of Mormon introduction. And there it is on the right. Don't worry, I'm not expecting anybody to be able to read that. I have that up there to show you the relative size, because when a word count was done, it's basically about half again as long as the original introduction. There's a number of other things that can be said about it, but I'm going to focus on one particular line of inquiry tonight, and that's how this ended up happening, and then perhaps getting into the why, because speculation a lot with the why, but that won't stop us from speculating at the end of the story. The interesting thing, and this was pointed out to me by Rebecca Biblioteca, is that this was not the first article about the new church introduction in the Book of Mormon on the Book of Mormon app. This was the Daily Universe, and this was October 11th, 2024. So that's like 2 months ago. And they talk about there's a new introduction on the Book of Mormon app. The Book of Mormon app being the app that you can get, which is apparently primarily associated with missionary work and investigators. In other words, the idea being that a person who doesn't have a lot of familiarity with the church is going to be the one reading this, hopefully. And throughout the article, which is still accessible as of this time, and you might want to run and grab and look at it while you can, because this may go down the memory hole as well. It appears that the church forgot about this one. So it calls this introduction an introduction. Can you see that right there on the right-hand side of the screen? There's the text of the introduction. There's the picture of Jesus below, but right above it, it has in all capitals, introduction. Yes, this was going to be the introduction. This was the new introduction. And they're reporting it on October 11th, 2024, which means obviously that it had been in place for some time prior to that. So now they're going to go ahead and they're going to spill the beans about the introduction, but apparently nobody really catches on. Nobody really thinks too much about it until much more recently, LDS Living did an article on it. And this was last Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024. Have you seen this new introduction to the Book of Mormon? Oh my gosh, it's right there in the headline. By the way, this ends up getting deleted. The reason we have this is because Rebecca went into the Wayback Machine and found it. So thank you so much for that too, Rebecca. Have you seen this new introduction to the Book of Mormon? Yeah, this is what the church didn't want you to read. Then we go on and it talks about, once again, there's the headline on the left, right? These are columns, 3 columns from the article. Once again, the one that's been deleted, you can see web archive up there where they were retrieved by Rebecca. Have you seen this new introduction to the Book of Mormon? The whole thing is this. It's because the article, I believe, called it the new introduction to the Book of Mormon that ended up getting the church to pull the plug on the article and have it taken away. Okay? That's where I'm heading with this. So that's not a complete mystery to you. Look at the language. Did you know the church recently released an updated introduction to the Book of Mormon? And then here's the revised introduction. And then this next paragraph from the same article. Why an updated introduction? And it says the church first published an introduction to the book, and the revised, it has it all throughout is what I'm trying to say here. Okay. And I don't know that I have to hit it every single time, but LDS Living correctly reported that this was an introduction, a new introduction to the Book of Mormon, and they printed the actual introduction itself, just like they had in the Daily Universe a couple of months before. The only difference is this is the point at which the post-Mormon world noticed the new Book of Mormon introduction and began to comment. This is something that has blown up, I think. And a lot of people have done reports on it. There's a lot of threads on it on Reddit. And a lot of people are wondering what the heck's going on. There was a great deal of controversy that ensued, is what I'm trying to say. And I think that's probably putting it mildly over this change from the introduction to the new introduction. And then what happened? Go back to LDS Living, click the links that used to take you to the story, right, Rebecca? Because she's the one who did it. And you find it's been taken down. And this was noted. Was it yesterday the first time it was noted, or the day before? I can't remember.
I think it was Sunday when I tried to click on it because I was going to put some stuff together for the newscast. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a bigger story. Here we go.
Yes. And so one's on a phone app, the other one's on a computer screen. And so the story's been taken down. And it's hard to avoid the conclusion that it has something to do with the controversy that got raised over this issue of there being a new introduction. So why did LDS Living take down the article? Now, here's my take on it, okay? Because he called the new introduction a new introduction, which it was originally, but then it appears the church's plan was impacted by the largely negative reaction to the new introduction. The church quickly replaced the new introduction with the old introduction. Now, this is what has happened over on the Book of Mormon app. While this has been going on at LDS Living, the church has not been without care of what's happening on the Book of Mormon app. So they had the new introduction there. They've had it there at least since October 11th when the Daily Universe reported on it. It's the new introduction with the new simplified language. What they did when this all hit the fan is they replaced that introduction with the old introduction. They created a new category at the bottom of the menu called explanatory materials, I think it is, brief explanation, and that's where they put the new introduction. It's no longer labeled an introduction. So this is what the church did over this. This is what I mean when I say the church quickly replaced the new introduction with the old introduction, labeled the new introduction a brief explanation, and put it at the bottom of the Book of Mormon app. The church then likely contacted LDS Living to take down the article in order to hide their tracks, while forgetting the Daily Universe covered the same story 2 months earlier. Talk about a smooth rollout, huh? And there is, I think this is somebody that is a mole for Rebecca. This person's on Rebecca's payroll. They're a turncoat, but this is what it is that they're saying. Okay, Rebecca, I got some more clarification about the app. There's a section where it goes chapter by chapter, and it includes, I think, a section that says introduction. Right now, that is the old intro. But I have someone telling me that that is where they found the new intro previously, called What is the Book of Mormon? And right there now is where I find the new intro. So according to this person, they actually did pull the new intro and replace it with the old intro. The reason why I put it up here, even though this would be the basis of hearsay, is that this is the conclusion that I came to as well, and it completely matches the evidence. So there's what it looks like on the app on the phone. Introduction and Witnesses to the Book of Mormon. This is a separate slide I put in. Title page of the Book of Mormon. Introduction, that's where all the funny business happened right there. I circled it. Then you get down, 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 and then brief explanation about the Book of Mormon. That's the new thing they created to put the introduction after it was roundly rejected. Okay.
Can I say something real quick?
Would you please?
Yeah, there might, again, I think what you're pointing to is there could be people who say, the introduction was always the old introduction, and this new thing went at the bottom, and yes, they removed it from LDS Living, but it was always there. But that makes no sense with the whole updated or revised language. That makes no sense with the way the articles talk about it. It seems absolutely it would be beyond absurd to make that sort of argument. The new introduction used to just previously be in place of the older introduction, which was then in place of previously the actual original old introduction. So I think that all adds up the way you said, RFM.
Yeah. I mean, I think we got him dead to rights on this one.
Yeah.
I just wish that I had gone onto the app. I didn't. I read the articles. I did all of that, but I wish I would have taken screenshots initially of the app. However, I did go on Faithful social media and I saw them talking about it, and they have the app because they're going to have the app. And they were questioning it too. They were saying, where's the old introduction is what they were writing. Where's Nephi and Moroni and the Hilkiah and the golden plates and Joseph Smith? And the Jaredites and the most correct book. Where's all of that? So that's kind of anecdotal, but that's from Faithful Social Media a few days ago, going through this on their own phones and saying, where is that now?
Yes, Richard Jones, I agree. I agree with you too, Rebecca. Someone told them to take it down. Why else would they have?
Right.
Yeah.
What would be the purpose? It would seem like a rather innocuous piece, except for the fact that labels it as an introduction what the church changed from being the new introduction in the middle of a flap. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to the new Book of Mormon introduction that once was a masterclass in manipulation. Other people have talked about the differences and how it used to be very Mormon-centric and have all these identifiers that only Mormons would understand. Whether it's Joseph Smith, I suppose non-Mormons could know who he was, but Moroni, Jaredites, those kinds of things. And it appears they've taken all of those out, except for the one exception of Mormon that they have to include in order to explain why the book has such a weird name. So that's one thing they've done, and that's what has been talked about. I just want to talk about this. A masterclass in manipulation, because this is what struck me the first time I read it. And there it is. What is the Book of Mormon? God is your heavenly Father. He loves you, and there is so much he wants to teach you. He wants you to understand the purpose of your life. He wants to guide you back to his presence. Part of his plan for doing all that was to make this book available to you. And wouldn't you be a crappy kid to your dad who loves you so much and has given so much to you and loves you so much to not read this book that he wants you to read? That's the guilt. That's the first thing. Guilt to God if you don't read this book. It goes on. And by the way, could you read this, Rebecca, this next part?
Well, let's see. How far did you get? The book available to you?
I did the left column. If you could do the right column.
Okay. Since the beginning of time, God has spoken to his children all over the world. Often they have recorded their experiences in God's message to inspire future generations to choose good instead of evil and to come to know their Father in heaven. Some of these records are lost to time. Others may yet be found. That's an interesting addition. One such record was buried in a hillside, an unnamed hillside, in around AD 400 on the North American continent. Its location was revealed, and I'm sorry, now that's covered. So it was revealed at some point. It was
by an angel in 1823.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, it was still covered.
Translated into modern language.
Modern language, still
by
covered.
The gift and power of God.
The record is the Book of Mormon.
Right. So there, like Rebecca was commenting, they've taken out everything that's unique to Mormon. There's no Moroni. It's an angel. I guess they have 1823. That's something, but that's not specific to Mormonism. Neither is 400 AD. So interesting how they have really taken away everything uniquely Mormon, or at least as much as they can possibly get rid of, in an introduction to the Book of Mormon. They're taking Mormon out of the Book of Mormon. Well, he's the only thing that's left, actually. Bill, do you have any comments about this before we go on?
Yeah, so the first thing is by them talking about other records that'll be found, it makes the Book of Mormon less weird, right? If you're used to the Bible and suddenly you're being asked to take on a different book, that sort of feels out of place. So you've got to sort of say that. Everything else here is so watered down. It definitely is to a general audience. It definitely is meant to give someone the book and an opportunity to read it and be influenced by it without them having any connection to Mormonism per se. Now, the word Mormon's there. Church really can't get away from it, but this is about as close as they could do to get away from it.
The next thing they'll be doing is changing the title. Remember when they changed the title to add another testament of Jesus Christ? Next time they'll change the title to remove the Book of Mormon.
Yeah, it'll just be another testament of Jesus Christ, huh?
Well, and if I could say, I've been looking around, just kind of Googling the app to see what is the purpose of the app? Like, who's supposed to utilize it? What is it supposed to be used for? And almost everything I found, it was something to share with others, for a member to share. So it's not really for the members. It is, as you said, a very simplistic way to understand and learn about the Book of Mormon. And it's meant to be shared with investigators, friends. And that seems to be the sole purpose, that you would say to somebody, hey, download the app. You can get to know more about it. So it's not really a resource for members. It's more promoted as something that you would let others know about.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, so let me go on here. This is continuing with the old new introduction. It's called the Book of Mormon because an ancient prophet named Mormon compiled centuries of writings from other prophets into one book. It is subtitled Another Testament of Jesus Christ because it bears powerful witness that Jesus Christ is the Son of God who came to earth to suffer and die for the sins of the world, including yours, you ungrateful bastard. If you don't take this book and read it, Jesus died for you so you could have this book. He wants to heal you of your sins, make you whole again, and prepare you for eternal life with your heavenly Father. And then finally, the third guilt trip they're going to put on you is, in this book, you will learn of faithful, courageous people whose boots you're not fit to black, who received light and knowledge from heaven. They believed in God. Do you? Do you? They had faith in Jesus Christ even centuries before he was born. Bet you couldn't do that. They made great sacrifices for their faith. Sacrifices, see? They also made mistakes, but they obtained redemption for their sins, and they risked their lives to share the true doctrine of Jesus Christ with others, and then preserve his teachings for future generations, including you. They sacrificed. They risked their lives. These imaginary people. They did all this for you. And wouldn't you be ungrateful if you didn't read the book that they risked their lives in order to give to you? So that's my analysis, my Freudian analysis of this. But there's a last part where they get to Moroni's promise. We're going to have a generation that doesn't even know Moroni's promise, because here it is. It's recapitulated. Read the Book of Mormon with an open mind and heart, as you pray to your Father in heaven and diligently seek him within the pages of the Book of Mormon. He will reveal the truth to you in his time and his way. Oh my gosh. Talk about, does God need two outs? Isn't one out enough for him? One loophole, they can get out of the contract and never respond to you at all, and he's still within the terms of the contract. His own way and his own time, that's not even a promise. That's a non-promise. That's what Moroni's promise has become. Sans Moroni. He will reveal the truth to you in his time and his way. He directed the creation and preservation of this record to fulfill his holy purpose, and you are an important part of that purpose. May you find God on these pages and discover his message to you. Messages to you. Well, the main message will be join the Mormon Church, but we know that. Anyway, so what I thought when I saw that, by the way, any comments from anybody at this point? Because that ends the introduction. That was the new introduction for a period of at least 2 months, I think, and is now no longer the new introduction.
I just thought it was interesting that Joseph Smith is completely gone. To me, that would make any older Mormon, like my parents, roll over in their graves, that there is absolutely no mention. But do you want me to talk about my epiphany that I had today right now, RFM, or save that till later about this?
I think I'd love to hear from you right now about your epiphany.
Perfect. Yes, I have them every couple hours. So no, I've been thinking about this a lot. I've been reading through it. Of course, obviously, what I just mentioned before, no Jaredites, no Hilkamora, no golden plates, no Moroni. It goes on and on and on. Nothing specific. No Tower of Babel, right? Nothing that you could Google and go down a rabbit hole. It's just very general. But today I started thinking about a conversation that I had with one of my temple busting friends in one of the towns, right? Because I talk to all these people, they're my friends now, and all of them are very religious people. They go to their own churches, they serve in their own churches and communities. And we were talking about the LDS point of view because they're trying to understand, all this temple building. And this particular friend said to me, I just can't wrap my brain around why you think you have additional scripture. And my friend was reading me all these scriptures from the Bible saying there will be no more scripture. So this morning I was thinking about that conversation, and I realized that the old introduction says, this is scripture comparable to the Holy Bible. That's I mean, I think I'm paraphrasing, but that's the first sentence. I feel like this new introduction is removing that. They're not saying that it's scripture anywhere. It's a nice book. There are going to be other nice books that come out, It's just one of many nice books, because I feel, at least in talking to many friends in other denominations, the idea that we dare to say we have another scripture is extremely off-putting, makes us not Christian, and makes nobody, even want to entertain it. So could it be that they're trying to take away the idea that this is actually holy scripture? I mean, just in general, just for the masses in the app. I don't know. That just came to me today at my desk at work.
This is the nectar on the Venus flytrap, to get the poor innocent fly to come in and, it's just a record. It's just a record. Snap. That's what it is, I think.
Yeah. First off, RFM, I think you made a great point. If the church could, it's sort of weird. They couldn't quite call the book Another Testament of Jesus Christ. That seems a little strange, but I think the church, and if not the church, at the very least, President Nelson would love to have the book called something else, to completely disconnect, as they move forward, the Book of Mormon from the word Mormon or Mormonism. They may be sort of stuck with it. It'll be interesting, because some of the changes that have happened in the last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, have been quite surprising to me. Things I never would have expected. I would have never expected high priest and elders quorum to be combined with high priest being done away. I just would never have thought that. And there are other changes. Ben Spackman said we're in a period of unlearning. The church, and what he indicated there is what you're talking about in this whole snafu. The church is examining everything about its history and its claims, and it is removing the things that they thought were doctrine, but which are falsified traditions. And or at least not shown to be accurate, truthful traditions based on truth. And I've been telling folks for a long time, it seems like the church is heading towards Methodism with a few more books. And this introduction is so much more gentle. And as Rebecca says, it's just one book among many books, and those other books will come forward someday too. It really is hoping to water this down, one more step of watering this down. And they got away with it for 2 months. And suddenly the ire coming from questioning Mormons or post-Mormons has gotten the church to backtrack.
Yes. Yes, it has. So I wanted to show you that's very soft Moroni's promise, mainly because here's the thing, okay? There's a soft Moroni's promise right there. We went over it. Mainly because how ironic is it that this is a new introduction to take the place of the old introduction. The old introduction was written by Bruce R. McConkie, much more direct, much more declamatory than this. And that made me think of Bruce R. McConkie and a somewhat famous quote, at least one that I remembered from General Conference, about how he phrased Moroni's promise in the Book of Mormon, which was not quite as soft and indefinite as this new introduction. And we have that, I think. Yes, here it is. This is a little over a minute long, 1983.
There is another and simpler test that all who seek to know the truth might well take. It calls for us simply to read, ponder, and pray, all in the spirit of faith and with an open mind, to keep ourselves alert to the issues at hand. As we do read, ponder, and pray, we should ask ourselves 1,000 times, could any man have written this book? And it is absolutely guaranteed that sometime between the first and the 1,000th time this question is asked, every sincere and genuine truth seeker will come to know by the power of the Spirit that the Book of Mormon is true, that it is the mind and will and voice of the Lord to the whole world in our day.
Yeah, that seemed a little more powerful. That was back when the church was true, I think. So I want to do that comparison. And someone had said that Brother Elder McConkey's hair looked wonderful. So say what you will, I agree. I think that's why they used to call him Brother Beaver.
Aquanet. That's all I have to say.
Is that what it is?
I think so, to get it all.
Right. That's the new Moroni's promise. Softened so much it doesn't even have Moroni in it. Then we got a picture of a lightning struck Moroni.
Which the majority of the new temples being built don't have a Moroni on them either. Another soft move that seems to stand out to some about the direction the church is going.
They're becoming very ecumenical. They've had a history of being radical and separatist, and now they're becoming so ecumenical that they may be losing those things that made them unique. Well, that's apparently the intention, to lose them. Okay, so we had that. Unanswered questions. These are unanswered questions. I don't have the answers to them. I've got guesses, and I'll throw it out to you two, and this is my last slide. The first unanswered question is, why have a new Book of Mormon introduction in the first place? And I think we've talked about that a little bit. And then why remove it as the new introduction? I think we've set out the case that that's exactly what happened. But the whys behind it, only a limited number of people know. And I've got a feeling if you're going to be making changes in the introduction to the Book of Mormon, you got to be very high up to be making those calls. This is not something middle management is going to be in charge of. I would not think. This is the keystone scripture, for crying out loud. Why have a new Book of Mormon introduction in the first place? I think we talked about that as a move toward ecumenicalism or ecumenicism, however it is. And two, why remove it as the new introduction? Obviously they did. And then the question is it what it seems obvious to be, which was the huge commotion? And then if it was the commotion, what aspect of that commotion was it that stung the leadership of the church so much that they made this move and then had the LDS Living pull the story to cover their tracks? Clever move. I think the thing that was coming up in the accusation that was being made is that the church was doing this because they were ashamed of their history and they were backing off of their history and they don't really believe their history anymore. So they're moving their history back to the end of the book and putting this new thing, which doesn't have any of their history in it. And they thought, no, we can't let that stand. We've got to go back and put it in front to show we're not embarrassed of our history. What do you two think?
I was thinking about missionaries, and I wonder if missionaries, as they teach now, do go through the introduction with all the problematic stuff in it. I mean, you only have to read a couple sentences before the investigator's like, a what? The what? The who? The where? The why? They're not understanding it, and then they go to Google, right? I know in other ways missionaries are very soft in what they teach. They call it the good news, and they invite people to worship, to meet the pastor, things like that, So I wonder if they're not even using the introduction anymore. I'd be curious. I'd ask my missionary, but I probably wouldn't get an answer. Maybe some of you can ask your missionary. So I wonder if that's part of it. To answer the first question, just what you said, it's just not palatable to people. It's foreign, it's confusing, it sends them to Google. It's dicey. The second part is kind of what I saw when I was looking on faithful social media about this topic. People were saying, well, where's our doctrine? Why did they, just very innocently asking, why would they take this out? Why wouldn't this be the first thing that you would tell people? This is Mormonism. Why would you relegate this to the back of the book? So I think that's why they had to put everything back, because faithful and others paying attention are saying, why in the world would you take this away? This is Mormonism.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add is I have a bit of doubt about whether they got nervous, because I think this was really a soft change that doesn't have any real deep implications. And yet there's so many things they've done. I mean, they're beginning to walk away from the Joseph Smith translation. The Great Apostasy. We've already got things like the Book of Abraham moving to a catalyst theory, the implementing of the 1832 account of the first vision with the 1838 and, a little bit from the other. Seems like they have no problem really sort of pulling the wool over the eyes of the members and changing the church in really significant ways. Free agency becoming moral agency, to the point where Elder Bednar says there is no such thing as free agency, when generations of church leadership taught free agency with the definition that he refutes being crucial to the plan of salvation. Seems like they're not bothered by really significant changes, and something got their panties in a twist on this one, and I can't make sense of why this and not those.
Well, I've got to bring up the fact that making it so that nobody calls it the Mormon Church seems to be a somewhat insignificant thing that they got their knickers in a twist over too.
Yeah.
So they do seem to get quite involved in things that others might look at and think that's not that important. And this could be an example. Just an idea. Anyway, what if you have anything else to say about the new introduction, say it now. Otherwise, we're moving on to the next story with Rebecca Biblioteca.
I was going to say one more thing.
Yeah.
Notice it no longer says the most correct book, and it no longer makes it sound like it's any kind of cornerstone of the religion. So that's kind of big.
And
Yes.
and no Joseph Smith. You said it already. That's huge.
Yeah.
No Angel Moroni. All right, here we go. Rebecca, take it away.
All right. I'll try to make it through. I need another cough drop probably. All right. The Fairview Town Council meeting update. I think a lot of you probably joined us last Tuesday. We had so much fun live streaming that meeting. And we're just going to do a brief recap for those of you that didn't have a chance to catch that. Again, we've been following this for over a year. The giant 173-foot, 45,000 square foot, 65 feet tall walls temple, the McKinney Temple, that's gone after mediation, and a consensus was kind of reached. And this new temple, you can see it there on the left. It is 30,000 square feet as far as the footprint. The walls, which I consider the biggest win of all, are down from 65 feet to 35 feet and 45 feet in some of the little areas. You can see it kind of goes up and down. And the spire is 120. Obviously, all of us feel that's still too large, but we do feel it's closer. They're closer to where they were. So this meeting that we live streamed on Tuesday night was a chance for the town council to talk to the residents and to let them know this is what happened. This is mediation. This is why we made the decision to say, go ahead and accept this or submit this new proposal, right? It still has to go through planning and zoning, town council. It's still, 6 months, whatever, a year out, but at least they're closer than they were. So we had the town meeting. There were a couple different articles that came out on this. This one's called The Battle of City Church Boils. Residents speak out against the compromise. That's right, against the compromise on the proposed temple, because Fairview United, they are sticking to their guns of follow the codes, follow the zoning. 120 is too tall. And I feel the same way. Although, again, I'll say closer than they were. So hopefully there'll be some negotiation there. So here's a picture of everybody there. It was very well attended and a lot of the residents spoke. The article says the battle between Fairview and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, widely known as the Mormon Church, continued this week as a new compromise proposal for the McKinney, Texas temple went to public discussion. Comments from Fairview residents at Tuesday's town council meeting show the fight is far from over. While some were grateful that the town negotiated the church's requested temple down in height and size and all of that, opposition in green Fairview United t-shirts, which I own 2 of, expressed dissatisfaction with the concessions made under threat of a lawsuit from the church, according to town officials. And yes, they were really trying to understand from the town council what had happened. What was the motivation? Was it the fear of the lawsuit? Was it the money issue? They were trying to understand exactly why this, concession, this new plan was arrived at. There was one, and I'm sorry, Bill, I do have one more video. We didn't have a chance to practice this. I hope it's okay. You can play it in its entirety. One resident did kind of speak almost for everybody else and really laid down the law here. So if we can play this, like I said, it's in its entirety. This is from the meeting last Tuesday night.
Many of you are on record stating that you wouldn't approve the temple with a structure height taller than 68 feet. I hope I'm wrong, but it appears your word carries very little weight. We have fought for 8 months against this $260 billion bully whose predatory behavior towards small towns has been despicable. I thought y'all were going to be the heroes, not only for the residents of Fairview, but for others who had been trampled on by the LDS. Y'all are so fearful about a lawsuit. I say bring it. Let's see what happens when the largest single landowner in this country, the richest religion in the world, sues a small town in Texas of 10,000 mostly senior citizens. How do you think this is going to be perceived by not only this country, but the world? I wonder if the optics will encourage more whistleblowers to come forward or embolden more sexual abuse victims to speak their truth. I can't imagine a court in this country believing that they're substantially burdened when there is a barely used temple 30 minutes away, and the only reason they haven't broke ground in Fairview is because they're hell-bent on substantially burdening the residents of this small town. Our loophole was never meant for giving religious institutions supremacy over secular entities, and those wielding it like a sword need to be stopped.
Thank you, Alicia.
Best comment of the night so far.
And it was the best comment. And that's Alicia, and she's amazing. And, she was speaking for Fairview, and I think she was also speaking for all the towns where temples are being built. She really said it, and she knew, she had her facts straight. So that was kind of the tone of a lot of the meeting. Other residents said, they thank the council. They understand it's very difficult, but everybody, as it goes through the process of planning and zoning, and then the town council, they want to see if they can get that height down. There was another article I thought was really interesting that came out about this same meeting. And in this article, the Chronicle, somebody had interviewed somebody more on the LDS side. And the title of this is God Wants Us to Build There. LDS Church Pushes to Construct North Texas Temple. The new plans for the LDS, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, to build a 35-foot tall temple with a 120-foot spire outside of the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area. Now, this was interesting. I'll just read some of this because the article says, in the last year, I'll just say a grandma, a longtime member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, hasn't been able to wrap her head around concerns over the temple being built in Fairview, Texas. She just can't fathom what her neighbors are thinking or why they might be concerned. She just can't see anybody else's point of view. I'm adding that myself. Anyway, a town of about 11,000 residents, roughly 30 miles from Dallas. The grandmother believes that God instructed the LDS Church President Russell Nelson, whom she considers a prophet, to construct the 65-foot tall temple with a 174-foot spire next to the existing church there. The LDS has 2 temples in the area, the grandma said, but the elders there are overworked. They need another temple for space to perform the increasing numbers of baptisms, weddings, and other sacraments for LDS members. So this is always the argument, of course, that there's got to be more room. Whenever I hear this, I just get somebody I know to go over onto the, what sessions are available. This is tomorrow. And yeah, the endowments kind of happen in the morning, when they have a group coming through to get endowments. So you can see that those are often all the way, I was going to say sold out. Those are often all the way full. But as you look down in the day, you got 30 seats, you got 27 seats, and then as I went through the week, you got 40 seats, 50 seats, 60 seats. Of course, the pushback on this is, well, there are walk-ins. So sure, if there are 300 or 400 people that walk into the temple, I stand corrected. Any comments about this? This is for tomorrow. Just in case you wanted to go to the Dallas temple, this is where it stands right now.
11 o'clock is full. Do you know what capacity is?
I'm guessing that it's probably 40-ish. That seems to be right around, I don't know for sure, but I haven't seen a number that goes over like 40 or 45. So
right.
I wanted to add something on the previous slide. Do you mind going back one there, Rebecca?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to.
So the grandmother, the church announces it's going to build a temple. It's got a specific architecture it wants to do. The city throws up its hands and says, no, not in our town. And the church comes back to negotiate. I just want to juxtapose something. If you go to the Old Testament, the New Testament, God is powerful. He can turn water into blood. He can make it rain frogs and locusts. He can kill the firstborn of every family who doesn't have blood on their door. He can flood the entire earth. He can alter the languages of everybody on the planet. The LDS Church, claiming to be his church in the last days, the best it can do is to negotiate in a way that it meets in the middle.
That's because God's prophets are now lawyers.
Yeah, there's no more supernatural magic. If this was the Old Testament, the city of Fairview would have bowed at the feet of God as the city was turned into salt or fire or melted, had their faces all melted off. It would have been something extreme, but God no longer has that ability. No member can shake their feet off against a critic or rebuke them or raise their hand and ask them to be muted. We're left with negotiations by lawyers. Yes.
That is such a good point. What they do in all these towns is they fast and they fast and they fast. We have the thinnest members of the church in all of these towns. They are fasting.
By the way, can I go back to the one before this? Because you remember Rabbi Joe Charnes?
This one?
Yeah, Rabbi Joe.
Yeah.
He contacted me. He was aware of the situation. He likes the new design because he told me he's glad to see that the Mormons are finally starting to circumcise their temples.
Well, Rabbi Joe. There's a lot of jokes we can make about this. Yeah, we'll see.
They call him the racy rabbi.
The racy rabbi. Oh, dear. All right, let's read a little more of this article. I just thought, it does kind of reflect, I think, some of the faithful point of view where they really can't see the other side of it. I mean, these are all members of a community. And that is one thing a lot of the residents I work with say is, can't they understand what they're doing? Can't they see how we would feel? And like this grandma is saying, she just can't even fathom why anybody would be upset. She goes on to say, people can build churches everywhere, but every time you have an LDS church or a temple going up, there's going to be a problem. She says, if the Baptists or the Methodists want to build a church, we don't mind. No, we don't mind. We should be able to build what God wants us to build there. For people to go against that, well, it's very un-Christ-like, right?
Preach it, sister.
Yeah. Again, self-awareness. I don't know. Several LDS church members in North Texas told me, the reporter, they're in favor of compromise, but feel like they've been discriminated against because they already have the largest building in the town, but they are discriminated against for wanting to see their sacred spaces built in Fairview and statewide. The grandma believes that Christians criticize LDS church members for a few reasons. This is interesting. First, for believing that their religious founder, Joseph Smith, was a prophet. Also, she says that church members are misunderstood due to their history with polygamy and the fact that they don't want to be called Mormons anymore. And the fact she's also worried about members being mischaracterized in the media in a time when Hulu now has a popular reality show titled The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. This tells me that maybe this grandma is watching this show. Otherwise, how would she know about it or even be concerned about it?
I like the way she equates the seriousness of polygamy and Mormon.
Yes. And The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. Exactly. So anyway, she feels discriminated against and like people are judging Mormons, members of the LDS faith incorrectly. And then she brings it all home by saying they're just mad because we're LDS. She says about the Fairview residents who are vocally opposed to the temple, the proposed temple, the Lord told Salt Lake City to build this temple here. So why is it so wrong? If it's too tall, too bad. And there it is.
Yes.
She said it out.
My thoughts exactly. I'm glad she's laying it out there.
Salt Lake City.
This is how most Mormons feel.
Yes.
She's just crazy enough to actually say it. You're not supposed to say it.
No.
At least not publicly.
No.
Not to a reporter.
Not to a reporter. Exactly. And I'm sure that's why the reporter jumped all over it. So, but yeah, I just thought that was interesting. A little window there into how they're feeling.
She's having her Randy Bott moment.
She's having a Randy Bott moment. But again, the ability to just put yourself in other people's shoes, the ability to say, we want everybody to make concessions for us, but we don't really want to make any kind of concessions, or we want everybody to be accommodating, but we don't want to accommodate. And again, this is not every member of the church in Texas, because there are many wonderful people there that I've interacted with that have sent me information that I've talked to. There are many, many people that want to see this resolved. They love their Fairview residents there, and they want to have it work. Yes.
Are you saying you have moles inside the church as well?
Most of my moles are inside the church.
Oh, bravo.
Yeah. No, and they say, I can't come out publicly, but I really don't like what's happening. And here's a copy of a letter I just got from my stake president. Yeah. I mean, this is why we don't know how to go out and get information. We have to wait for people to give us information. And everybody's really well-meaning. And the overarching idea is, can't we all just get along? Can't we all just find a way to make it work? And I came across this, not related to temples, but today, and it's too small for me to read, so I'm going to let RFM, if you want to read it, but talk about accommodating others and being willing to invite someone else into your sacred space. There are many members that will do that. This is a picture of a Relief Society room where obviously a stake or a ward, and I've read articles about this, have invited Muslims in to pray. I'm not sure if this is a picture from, remember a building burnt down and they let people in. So, you can see their shoes there in the doorway and it says Relief Society room on the door, and you see people praying inside. So there are members, wonderful people who are saying, yes, share our sacred space. We understand your point of view. But if you'll read RFM, these comments that are with this picture that were posted today online, you also unfortunately have the other point of view.
Why are Muslims being invited to pray in LDS churches? Why are we covering up pictures of Christ to make them feel more comfortable? Oh, I see that way there in the background above the chairs that have been folded up and leaned against the wall.
Yep.
This is freaking pathetic. This bishop or stake president should be severely reprimanded immediately.
Yeah. So again, I just show that because many people do invite others into their sacred spaces and to share. And then there are people that say, that's not what we do. So.
Yeah. And I think the reason that they covered up the picture isn't so much anti-Jesus. It's their proscription, which they take quite seriously against graven images.
And it could be a picture of Joseph Smith. I had that in my Relief Society room. So anyway, I think that's all we have on the update of Fairview. Any more thoughts on that? And then I have a quick little other temple thing that popped into my inbox this morning. I know you guys will find really interesting.
I'll just add one thing to this, and I'll be quick on this one. And there folks have said sort of the same thing in the comments. People who think like this lady, the church, if the Church of Satan wanted to build a 25-story monumental giant building, these exact same people would then be quoting the codes of the town they live in. To try to take it and make it something other than the size of the building is simply creating a straw man that allows you to keep feeling comfortable about your beliefs, but which does not get to the point. And the moment you think about some other religious system that you don't like, building a building way too big in your neighborhood, you'd be the first one quoting the codes and bylaws of that town.
I think that's a really good point, Bill. And this makes me think of the big meeting where they had people commenting from both sides. And I think that is exactly what the Mormons who spoke there were focused on, because that's why they didn't even address each other. Those who were Mormon and for the temple, the tall temple, right, didn't say anything about the codes. All they said is, we're good people. We're good people. We're good people. In other words, they're addressing the criticism that we don't like Mormons, which really wasn't at issue. It was the code all the way. But I think that's why, and everybody who didn't want the temple didn't say anything about Mormonism. They just talked about the code.
Yep, over and over again in all the meetings that we watch. And really, since I interact with so many resident groups, it's like deja vu. They say the same thing over and over. They never talk about the religion. They never talk about the members. They simply talk about the traffic, the lighting, the height, the code, the water, the sewer. That's what they talk about. And that's it.
Can I just add one other thing to put the bow on this? Is that doing it as or seeing it as persecution allows you to win the argument without ever addressing the issue.
Yep.
And that's the benefit of this persecution complex. It allows you to be right even when you're demonstrably wrong on the facts.
It's a form of ad hominem, right? You're attacking.
Yeah. Yes.
You're attacking somebody because they don't like you. You're making an argument about their motive rather than the argument itself, which has been clearly the laws of height and them not wanting a tall building to be burdening the town.
Yep. And I will say that the residents I talked to, they are horrified to be called religious bigots because, as I said, they're all religious people themselves of all denominations. And to be told that they're a religious bigot, they've never been called that before. They are not. And they're horrified and worried about that. And in some cases, like in Vegas, when you take that to social media, people's businesses have been hurt. People have been labeled bigots publicly. So it's scary to be called that. You worry about what will happen, your reputation, your business. So again, well, I'm glad you brought up Good Neighbor RFM. This last little snippet here about temples popped into my email this morning, which I thought was great. We're going to talk about the Farmington, New Mexico temple. Okay. We haven't ever talked about this before. It's all built, but it's not open, not dedicated. So I got this very nice email this morning from someone who's a Farmington resident. And she said, our local college and community host an annual Christmas lighting of luminarias around the campus of the college. Kids in elementary school, middle school, high school, and college students all participate in folding fillings and placing the bags. The community is invited to drive or walk through the luminarias and enjoy the Christmas music playing all over the campus. So this is an event that everybody looks forward to all year long. And it's huge. I mean, it's covered by the news, as we'll see. It's really awesome. Recently, the Farmington, New Mexico temple was built across the street from the main entrance of the college. The church previously owned this land and had a stake center there. It was torn down and replaced with a new temple and a stake center. To the north and south of the church's property stand two other churches. The luminarias display is best enjoyed when the lights in the surrounding buildings are dimmed. I'm sure you can see where this is going. Street lights are kept on for safety, of course. This past weekend, my kids and I walked through the luminarias with the temple light overpowering the usual quiet, reverent Christmas display. I couldn't help but notice that the other two churches had dimmed their lights for the display, respectfully. Yes, the other churches are smaller buildings, but their lights did not disturb the spirit of the evening. The community put so much care into this event. There are thousands of bags in the parking lots and the walkways. In this video, you can see an aerial view of parts of the event and how the temple light can be seen on the southeast end of the campus. And as I said, this is not an operating temple. It has not been dedicated, and there hasn't been an open house, I don't think, but it is fully lit, jack to Jesus. So I have a little clip here if we can play this, Bill, and then I'll show you some pictures.
Wilson from Salmon College Physical Plant. And again, back to our coverage of the Luminaria display. I want to show you some of the images from our drone footage here.
Look how pretty that is.
Display that is put together by Salmon College High School. We can tell you about them. It is in the area of Graduation Plaza, or otherwise known as Learning Commons.
Yeah, so that's kind of what you can see from the sky. You can see how comprehensive this campus is, and they have Christmas music. Like the person who emailed me said, it's all very reverent, and you can see the light of the temple. I mean, it's pretty much all you can see from the air. Let's see how it would look from the ground if you were to walk on that campus. And as this emailer said to me, the other churches in the area have dimmed their lights. So here you're walking, you can see the bags. And you see, what's that poking up? Oh, that's a temple spire. Here you are walking along the sidewalk. Oh my, what's that? Exactly, right there. Look at this. This really shows it, and I'm sure some people go, oh, you're complaining, you're splitting hairs. I'm not. I'm talking about being a good neighbor. This is a temple that is not even operational yet. And this is a beloved community event that is greatly impacted. So, I don't know if they realize it or not, but it's definitely, to use a word that somebody once used at a council meeting, diminishing the experience of this luminarias. And I don't think really showing very much respect for the community. I don't know. What do you guys think? I just think it's sad. Look how pretty it is. And when you're there, that's going to detract and draw your eye, right, upward.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I have a question and a comment. The first is the obvious question. Does anybody know if somebody asked them to dim the lights?
That is a good question. That is it. But
the first question.
Yeah, I would think that being in the community, though, I'm sure that the people, that are temple workers, that are going to be temple presidents, I'm sure they know what's going on. But you're right. Maybe they were not asked and they didn't realize how bright they were. That's a possibility.
Okay, my second comment is this one. Okay, I think the citizens of Farmington should be grateful to the LDS Church, because if that temple were not there, airplanes could not land safely on the light display.
Okay. There's always a bright side.
Might have to make an emergency landing in Delta.
That's right. It's a very pretty display, though. If anybody's near Farmington, everybody go over to that college and take a look. It looks like it's really pretty. Okay, I think I'm done. Yep, I think that's it. We're on to Bill.
Okay, so the Deseret News, Church News ran an article titled "Responding to the Call of a Prophet: More Missionaries Serving, More People Joining the Church." And there were two quotes in here and then a couple other things that were said that sort of caught our eye. David N. Weidman, managing director of the missionary department, said, quote, "Every region of the world is seeing an acceleration in the growth of convert baptisms." So in a church that where all data points from all comers point to decline or plateauing, he's making a claim that we are seeing an acceleration in the growth of convert baptisms in every region of the world. That's a big claim. Then you've got W. Mark Bassett. I always love LDS folks and the non-use of the first name and the emphasis on the middle. W. Mark Bassett, General Authority 70.
Well, you wouldn't want to use your first name either if it were Wiener.
Yeah.
Oh, but why?
General Authority 70 and executive director of the church's missionary department said, quote, "But the reality is more people are coming to the Church of Jesus Christ than we have seen in decades." Now, I should have pulled the church's membership numbers, sort of the high ones for the last decade, 2 decades at least, if you were saying decades, plural, at least 2, and see how that would compare with the next upcoming announcement or the most recent one of membership numbers. But I've got plenty of data here that does say otherwise.
Why does this guy have to say the reality is? Who is he talking to? What is he responding to, except for allegations that the church is diminishing in its growth?
Yeah.
That's what this whole puff piece is about. I think it's propaganda. I think it belongs in Pravda. Can I just do one thing here, Bill?
Please.
Church News. Have you noticed the new byline?
Yeah.
A living record of the restoration. When did that start? Because now, with the ongoing restoration, the Church News follows suit. It's a living record of the restoration and all the news that's not fit to print.
Yeah.
Back to you.
So I've got some data here. Let's just think about this for a moment, because it is a big claim. Every region of the world is seeing an acceleration in the growth of convert baptism. Now, I don't doubt that there are places in the world like Africa where the growth of the church is doing quite well and might be as high as it's been in a long time or ever. But there are places in the world where the church is in decline. We'll see one of those here later today in this presentation here on this part of this news story. And then there are more people coming to the Church of Jesus Christ than we've seen in decades. A couple other things said here. David Weidman, again, managing director of the missionary department. Weidman said in North America in particular, well over 50% of those who are baptized into the church come through the use of technology of one type or another, such as the introduction to the Book of Mormon. Into the church come through the use of technology of one type or another, such as social media posts or digital ads in their feeds. So good job on the Google ads. And then Mark Bassett again, General Authority 70, executive director of the church's missionary department, said, quote, "Recent converts are staying. More people are being baptized. More missionaries are serving. And that's why we had to create 36 new missions. And now we have more missionaries than we had estimated." Now we're at about 80,000 missionaries. If you remember, Elder Holland estimated that we'd get to 100,000 missionaries. So according to him, we actually have less missionaries currently than they had at one time estimated.
But that wasn't until like 2018, right?
Yeah, but we've never achieved it.
I'm saying it's in the past.
Yeah. It was a temporary commandment. And that it's likely that will continue as more people respond to the call of a prophet. It's just a blessing to witness. Now, as we look at the following data, I have to wonder if he's just regurgitating what he's been told, or if he actually has any inside track to the data, because here is the LDS Church's reported positive annual membership growth, and it is growing. And I sort of believe this data right here, but this doesn't point to active membership. This is just number of people on the rolls. The church doesn't release active membership. We can't get at the actual facts by the church giving us the data as them being closest to it. They don't do that. That's not a game they want to play. So we have to go off what others say. So we end up with an LDS Church growth rate versus world growth rate. Now, ups and downs, but over the long run, it is a significant decline. There's this anomaly year, by the way, 1989. I think it's when the Book of Mormon placement program started. There's also a strange blip that happens that we'll see later that I think plays into when Elder Cook said that the church has never been stronger. But just as a general decline, but again, starting in 2020, and we don't have 2022 or 2023 or 2024 there. These things always lag a year or two or three behind. But in 2020, we start to see an uptick again. Again, lots of ups and downs, but generally a decline. And now the church's growth rate is below the world's growth rate, which has also been in decline for decades. Church membership and growth, same sort of data, a little different way of looking at it, but this one only goes to 2018. We still have that same blip in 1989, 1990. The widow's mite points to observable indicators that point to declining LDS activity rates. This is the indexed percentage, the green line, indexed percentage of number of households paying full tithe in 5 countries. So there are 5 countries that mandate certain data collection. And in those countries, we can see the churches going down. So this would be one of the regions of the world where he claims growth is just out of control. Then you get the red dots, which are index percentage of Americans who identify as Mormon and claim to attend at least one monthly meeting of the church. Again, steep decline. Then you've got the blue line, which is index percentage of male members serving missions. And this is a rolling 2-year average. Now, again, it's up a little bit, but the widow's mite has addressed that and thinks that's just a blip from COVID sort of coming back to normalize. And we'll see if they're right in a year or two, at least by the data the church releases. And I have reason not to trust that too, which we'll get to. A couple of other charts, CES religious affiliation, CCES religious affiliation, and activity trend, down, down, down. Other national census surveys, down, 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 down. Observable indicators. So I'm going back to that original one I showed you. There's a way to manipulate the data to make the growth claims that they're making. If, as he said, the last few decades, if we take the last 20 years and we look at it collectively, don't pay attention to the ups and the downs, just the beginning of the 20-year moment to the end of the 20-year moment, and then a small little uptick after it, you would then be able to claim that the growth in that really small uptick is significantly more growth than the general downtick over 2 decades. But it would be near impossible to compare that small uptick to any other large decline in the same period of time behind it and make the claims that they're making. So, can growth claims be trusted when the church makes them? First off, Elder Cook said, in 2015, some have asserted that more members are leaving the church today and that there is more doubt and unbelief than in the past. This is simply not true. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has never been stronger. And I'm going to go back here. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has never been stronger. And this is him continuing. The number of members removing their names from the records of the church has always been very small. and is significantly less in recent years than in the past. So I want to note that. Now, this is 3 years fast forward, but also if we keep in mind, a lot of people left the church later that year in 2015 when the November 2015 policy came out. Now, I don't expect him to have foresight. It would take a prophet to know that. But in 2015, he said the church has never been stronger and not that many people take their names off the rolls. In November 2015, when the LGBT policy came out, lots of people left. I don't know what that is, but we do have this from Peggy Fletcher Stack in 2018, 3 years later, amid the 2018 statistic report announced Saturday by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, there is a startling finding. The largest number of membership records ever removed in a single year, 140,868. So there's that. I want to note there is this blip in 1989. So the column there with the red square above it says exits. These are the estimated number of people who are excommunicated, who are have their names removed. And I remember at the time, I don't know how to explain this, but I remember at the time, there's only a few years that have a negative number. It's like some sort of self-correcting thing happening in the data. It's not that, so in other words, instead of 186,000 people leaving, what the church is claiming in that year is that 186,000 people came back more and above the number of people who had their names removed or were excommunicated that year. And we only see this in a couple of other instances, 1999 and 1974, and then the year after that 1989 blip, 1990. Again, I don't know how to explain this, but I remember at the time, Quentin Cook's statement could only be justified if this blip was taken into effect and it was essentially used as the measuring stick for why he says what he says in his quote. Again, I don't remember how to make sense of that, but I'll just note that 186,000 people allegedly came back to the church miraculously when almost every other year, 30, 40, 50,000 people leave. Now, 140,868 would be higher than any number on that screen. 1980 had 115,000 people stepping away. 1982, 102,000. 1993, which would be in reference to the September 6th, most likely, 91,000 left. But the number of people who left the church in 2018 was by far greater than any other single year in any of the data I saw. So I think Peggy Fletcher Stack is correct. Then, so Quentin Cook stated something that seemed demonstrably untrue compared to the data, and at the very least, deeply untrue with the data that would come out going forward. And so then I say, okay, there's one instance of a church leader seeming to be dishonest. Here's another one where he flat out lied. Elder Holland said, we're in the midst of incredible growth, staggering growth in the church. A week ago Thursday, April 2016, would have been a week ago Thursday. It would have been in April. He said, we created 15 stakes, and we are doing that más o menos every week, more or less. It might not be 15, but the week before it was 12, and sometimes it's 8 or whatever, and it'll be a little uneven. But the point is, we are talking double-digit stake creation every week. The truth, when I took that data and looked into it, what we found was that it was an average of 1 stake per week. And you can go back at the time, I know you were RFM, you recorded an episode of Radio Free Mormon called Lies, Damn Lies, and Statistics, where you examine this claim along with some other ones the church makes about growth. And so, folks, if you want to see sort of the conversation, evidence-based on what the church has said in regards to its statistics, you can go back and listen to that episode. You can also go back and listen to Liar, Liar, Pants on Fire to see this talked about in regards to Elder Holland. But the church has never, at least not in a long time, created double-digit stakes in a given week. best, they are averaging about 1 to 1.2 stakes per week created. So Elder Holland here was completely misrepresenting the data. Then every region of the world, they're claiming the church is growing. But just recently, 17 hours when I got this image, which was earlier today, I think, Mormon Stories Podcast reported the following breaking news. LDS Church closes 3 stakes in the Salt Lake Valley amid shrinking membership. In a shocking move, the LDS Church announced today that 3 stakes in the Salt Lake Valley are being dissolved, consolidating 5 stakes into just 2. For weeks, members in these stakes had been receiving text messages informing them that their wards no longer existed and that they were being released from all of their callings and that they should attend a new ward the following Sunday. However, what members didn't know until today's special stake conference is that this wasn't just about their wards. It was about their entire stakes disappearing. This consolidation affects hundreds of families in the Salt Lake area, the historic heart of Mormonism. The church has long boasted of its growth, but this latest move is yet another indication that membership and activity rates are declining. Even in the most Mormon-dominated state, what does it mean when the church is forced to close stakes in the Salt Lake Valley, its historical stronghold? And I'll just finish here with one last statement, and then I want to get your thoughts, folks, both of you on this. The church wants to claim growth every time it gets a chance. It seems so important to claim growth, whether it's convert baptisms, which they're pointing to in this church news article, whether it's the church has never been stronger and nobody's really leaving compared to yesterday, like Elder Cook, or that we're creating double-digit stakes in the church every week of our lives. And there are lots of believers out there who go, these are just the anti-Mormons, and they're just saying a bunch of stuff. And yet every indicator of data coming out of the church, at the very minimum, says growth has stalled out. In some places, it is in deep decline versus where it was in past decades. That convert baptisms aren't anywhere near where they were in the past in the 80s and 90s. And yet the church wants to, at every place, convince its membership that it is experiencing not only growth, but dynamic growth across the world. Your guys' thoughts on this most recent opportunity for the church to brag about how fast it's growing?
I think it's bad timing that it happened right when they made this announcement about the stakes in Kearns. I will say I had heard from people about Kearns that, it's an aging area. It's not necessarily people leaving. It's, people aging out. And I understand that happens, but I think stakes are a way to hide a myriad of sins, right? It's very tricky what they do. Say you have a stake with 6 wards in it. Well, you put 3 wards in one stake, you create another stake, you put 3 of those wards in another. Suddenly you have booming stake growth. You have 2 new stakes. It's incredible. And these are the kind of, I saw someone in the comments say shell game, and that's exactly what it is. Wards with fewer people, stakes with fewer wards. It's being propped up to look like growth, but the actual numbers, as far as all of us can determine, and the widows might especially, just don't support that. I saw an article yesterday saying Scotland membership dropped by 7%. I mean, these are big numbers. These are catastrophic numbers. And simplistically, I'll say, if the news was good, they would completely be reporting it and shouting it from the rooftops, but they're not. They're playing a shell game to make it appear as if there's growth. And it matters. People say, why does it matter? I did an episode on Mormonish about returnandreport.org, where you can go and you can count the numbers of people in attendance. And there was some pushback. People said, why does it matter? Why do you care? Who cares about attendance? Why do you even care? I said, of course I care. I care for temple building. If they're telling these people in these towns, we're overflowing, and they're not, that's a problem. There are many reasons that the stats are important. So And I think they'll continue to do it. I think they'll continue to come up with clever ways to shuffle around, Peter paying Paul. And you know who are the victims here? The victims are people. The victims are people whose wards are closed or boundaries are realigned, and they're just simply shuffled around just so there's an appearance of growth. And that's not a healthy scenario, and it's not good for people.
Isn't it amazing? Oh, sorry, Bill. Did you want to talk about the Return and Report app?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about right there.
I only want to note, I'm telling you, if everybody could do that, if every person who is questioning the church and wants to figure out whether this thing is being honest or not, if every person who still attends would go there and do this, or if you had access to the clerk's office because you're the assistant ward clerk or you're the ward clerk, if you want to print off the membership data and juxtapose it over a period of time, 5 years, whatever the system lets you do, if enough people did this, the church would be forced to be more honest and maybe completely honest if enough areas of the church could show what the actual hard numbers are. So really, it's up to you out there who are watching and listening to follow up and do what this says if you still attend. And we could easily find out if the church is being honest specifically in various areas, and if enough of you did it collectively in the church.
Yeah, and some people have told me that they can just ask the ward clerk. Like they find themselves in church and they go, hey, what's the count today? And the ward clerk will tell them. Return and Report has almost 500 reports now. And if you know anything about statistics with the rolling average, they are at a point now where it's steady and it's showing 21-ish% attendance at sacrament meeting, and this is across the board. And again, there's no pro or con, good or bad to these numbers. These are numbers. You count the people. You count the number of women, men, children. You input it into this very user-friendly website or app, and there it is. There's nothing to be afraid of in numbers. There shouldn't be, right? But I think there is. So I even had somebody say yesterday who hasn't gone forever, you know what? I can just duck into a couple meetings, just be in the back, count, then go to the next building. I mean, they sort of saw the vision of it and thought it might actually be kind of fun and definitely help. Somebody, for God's sake, needs to get the real numbers.
Can I just say what strikes me toward the end of tonight's episode is how much deceit and secrecy are built into the warp and woof of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We start off with them wanting to hide the fact they had a new introduction when it blew up in their face the second time it was reported on last week. And then they have the article calling it an introduction pulled. Why? Because they operate with deceit and secrecy. They're not upfront about anything. And then we get to Bill's story, right? We get to Bill's story about how they have an article in the church news where they're lying to you about church growth and about membership growth. And then we get to the point where Bill has to look at something Elder Cook said, and Bill has to try and twist himself into a pretzel in order to come up with a way that Elder Cook could have actually said that obviously deceptive statement and still had a truthful response to fall back on if he were questioned on it. In other words, in what way can we twist this and look at it where he's actually telling the truth while he's lying to us? And the thought that occurred to me there, and this will be my last thought about this here, is we, as members of the church, or post-members of the church, or just human beings, we should not be put in the position of having to parse out the words of an apostle of Jesus Christ to figure out how he is trying to deceive us without technically lying.
Yeah. I want to say one more thing, and then I'll turn the time back over to you guys. I came out not too long ago, a year ago or so, a year and a half ago. I said, the thing you want to watch is the number of missionaries serving. I said, that has started to go down. If you start to see that plummet, you can clearly know that the faithfulness and activity rate of the church is good. The number of people, butts in the seats, is going down. Immediately, the next conference, is when we start to get this wording that now we're growing in missionaries. Now it's 80,000. With a church that's lied over and over and over and over and over again, how would we know they're telling the truth that there's actually 80,000 missionaries out there? We can't. You have to trust their saying. Unless somebody can go around and count them all, you can't know. And what you have to go off of is, does this entity have a record of telling the truth about its history, its doctrine, and its numbers? And it doesn't. So why would we trust it anytime it opens its mouth? Back to you, RFM.
Credibility is important. Credibility is important to have, and they don't have it. Did you want to say something, Rebecca?
Nope. I'll just hold my thoughts until my final little quick segment. So
okay, we're going to do this in spite of monetization issues.
Yeah, because all you have to do is cut it out later.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here we go. Watch this, because you people who are watching this live, you're the only ones who are going to be able to see this segment.
You probably
later,
are.
it'll be gone.
I was going to say that it's not just the living that we need to be concerned with. It's also the dead. I always like to bring to the newscast the things that are blowing up all over social media. And this is something that definitely has had a presence out there for several days in a row. This is a song called The Ancestors' Plea. The song came about because a gentleman named Rob Ferguson had a dream more than 20 years ago, in which an ancestor of his came to him and through song begged for their temple work to be done, reminded him that they were waiting and waiting, and they needed someone on earth to go to the temple and perform those ordinances. So he woke up and was able to write down the words and the tune to the song. He kind of held on to it, shared it with a few select people. And then here we are 2 decades later. He connects with a very talented musician, Becca Sorensen, and she's able to put it all together. And this popped up on social media at the beginning of the week. Now, we'll play a little snippet, and like RFM alluded to, I'm guessing when this, if you're viewing this after the actual newscast, we'll probably have to take it out because I'm sure it is copywritten. You can find it anywhere on YouTube, Ancestors' Plea. But as I read on social media, a lot of people showed their faithful, husband, faithful mother, faithful sister this video, and a lot of people thought it was a parody.
There's a lot of that going around.
Exactly, until they realized it wasn't. So again, the theme is your work isn't done. There's a bunch of stuff you still need to do, and we're just going to play a tiny snippet of it here.
Can I mention something here before you hit go? This is why, look at the costumes. This is why Lex de Azevedo in Saturday's Warrior gave as a note in the script, when you're doing the premortal existence, have colored pastels. Don't dress all in white.
Yeah. But we always think of it as all in white, right? That's what heaven is. That's what premortal existence is.
No green aprons, as someone noticed.
No. All right. Let's hear our ancestors' plea. Here we go. Little piece of it.
Up to you, my child, so please recall. Your family chain extends beyond these walls. Find me, find me, find me.
Oops. Anyway, then they go into full chorus, full song. Every person is singing, and the words are, find me. I've accepted the gospel. I've lived a good life. I've done the best I could. Unfortunately, I was born in one of those eons where there was no gospel. Please find me and please do my work.
So these are like the people in spirit prison who are singing.
Yes. This is spirit prison.
Wow.
Yeah. And if we would have played more, it showed that. They're all stepping forward saying, I've been waiting. I'm in spirit prison. Please.
That's
if we
why
don't
no
already
aprons.
have enough guilt. Right.
That's why they don't have aprons on.
That's why they don't have aprons. They're in spirit prison. So if we go to the next slide.
I do have to ask, though, about the one who 20 years ago came to this guy
Uh-huh.
Did she like escape from spirit prison?
Yeah,
Is she like Steve
I
McQueen?
don't know why she was allowed to do it, but again, everybody go look that up. I mean, it's a pretty song. It's very well produced. The girl who's singing has a beautiful voice. I know somebody who knows her says she's amazing. And, but again, the theme, somebody in the comments just wrote trigger warning. And for me, I've talked about my parents and genealogy before. It's extremely triggering because this is how I was raised, that there are people all over my house like this who are yelling in my parents' ear, don't drive your daughter to band practice, go do genealogy, things like that. So for those of you who aren't really familiar with the concept of spirit prison, I just have to very quickly say this. The Apostle Peter referred to the post-mortal spirit world as a prison, which it is for some. In the spirit prison are the spirits of those who have not yet received the gospel of Jesus Christ. These spirits have agency. They can be enticed by both good and evil in spirit prison. So if they accept the gospel there, because there are people there, missionaries teaching them, and if the ordinances are performed for them in the temple, they may leave the prison and dwell in paradise. So yes, everyone who's ever lived who has not accepted the gospel, or even if they've accepted it, like these wonderful people in the video, but no one has done their work, they are still in prison. And that's on you and me.
Well, apparently they can do jailbreaks every now and then. So what's the rush? That's what I want to know. Somebody said this is Stephen King. It looks like Stephen King in the front of this line of people.
No, that's Robert Wagner. Don't you think?
Is this before or after he offed Natalie Wood?
I don't know. It's during
allegedly
the era. Yeah.
A horrible person would say something like that. But if it's Stephen King, he could be starring in his new upcoming movie of The Long Walk.
The Long Walk, he could. So anyway, it's very interesting, this whole concept. Some people just say, yeah, I got to get to the temple more. Other people, like the way I was raised, they are talking to ancestors. They are waking up in the morning saying someone came to me in a dream. I have to go to this book. I have to open this page. The ghosts are talking to me, or they're saying, Rebecca, don't sit there. Your great aunt, whatever, was just there. Things like that. Some people really get into it. And this elicited a very strong reaction on social media. People were triggered. People were upset, people like me, who were raised in that kind of dichotomy. So I thought this was kind of interesting. This is one of my favorite comments. Somebody said, temple work makes no sense. Imagine being born 72,000 years ago in sub-Saharan Africa, and then after having lived a simple and peaceful life, you die. And you're told that a God you've never heard of is going to be born 7 millennia later, who will command people to build temples so that a white couple named Dave and Jill Goodrich from Layton, Utah, on a continent you don't know exists, can now do some special handshakes, allowing you to be with your loved one forever, escape the prison you're in until then for simply being born in the wrong epoch of time. So that's one scenario. Another is, or imagine waiting for centuries for your temple work to get done, then getting the news that Kevin Young, the 22-year-old from Gilbert, Arizona, who was scheduled to do your temple work, was caught necking and petting with his girlfriend, Kelsey Peterson, in a parking lot outside of BYU Smith Fieldhouse. So his stake president wouldn't renew his temple recommend, and now he's on probation. And, that's absurd, but no more absurd than the concept that, and think about it, we use written records. The church is completely reliant on written records. Even our Next Life talks about books and written records. Don't get me started on this, but writing like that you can actually search records, we're talking only the last 300 years. The rest of the world, the rest of the entire population of the planet, they don't have a chance. They are all in spirit prison. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Were you triggered? Were you?
Somebody was talking about Stephen King's new book, and I think that maybe he does have a new book coming out. It's Mormon themed. It's called The Black Steeple.
The Black Steeple. That sounds very intriguing. So I don't know, Bill.
The Black Tower.
The Black Tower. Have you ever thought about this, Bill?
The Dark Tower.
Have you ever felt guilt over not going to the temple because so many people are waiting for you in spirit prison?
This is terrible. I didn't really like the dark. I think it's the Dark Tower. So his new thing is the Dark Steeple. There you go.
I took family history work seriously. I've got my stuff back to like the 400s and royalty in England and in all directions. So I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I will say this. We used to be so sure about who was valiant and who wasn't. We thought the physically and mentally disabled folks were. We thought that the people of color were less valiant. We used to think people got a planet when they were exalted. We're not so sure about that anymore. The church newsroom says we don't. President Nelson says we do. what's the chances that maybe we're doing a period of unlearning with all of it? And how would we know that there is a pre-existence if everything we thought about the pre-existence and exaltation can be challenged in 2024? And so there's way too often where people can make claims that they had a spiritual experience, but when you have things you can measure that are data-based, such as giving people priesthood blessings, what we find is that nobody wants to take on those kinds of experiments because they would clearly show that there isn't any supernatural magic here. The reason why the church is negotiating in Fairview, Texas.
Yep.
And so using faith-promoting spiritual experiences that one person claims happened inside their own head doesn't make much sense for getting an entire people to do anything.
No, and I actually sent. Oh, go ahead, RFM.
No, you go ahead. I was
going to say, I sent this video to my temple busting friends in these cities. I said, if you want to understand the motivation of Mormons, this is it. Yes. They really believe there's a pull and a call from people that are desperate for them to attend the temple. But then again, if they really believed it, wouldn't more be going? Wouldn't you be going nonstop? There were a few like that, like my parents, but I don't know. I think I have one more slide, and this is something that RFM and I had talked about. Again, written records and the history of humanity. Honestly, shouldn't there be a video where Neanderthals are singing the same thing? Where's their song? Where's their temple work? Most of us have at least 2% Neanderthal DNA. I actually have more than that. I have an inordinate amount of it, which is
how much? Tell us.
Like 4 point something. Like it's a lot.
I'm over half.
I told my parents. And my dad said, well, Neanderthals aren't real, are they? And my mom said, that must be your father's side of the family. Because Neanderthal DNA, that puts a whole big wrench into the creation story for sure. So I have one more quick little thing that I came up with that is also on social media. Last thing I promise, BYU Idaho campus. A new statue is being unveiled tomorrow after a devotional. Okay, this is kind of a contest on the newscast. I want everybody to predict what this statue is going to be. It's supposed to be a big deal. It's going to be unveiled, and I want to know your predictions in the comments.
I think it's going to be Steve Pinecker.
It could be. I want you to go onto our newscast Facebook page and put in your predictions, and we'll read them next time. I have my own prediction. There was a particular person who was the president of BYU Idaho, Ricks, and then BYU, he kind of ushered it into the BYU Idaho era. I predict it's the David A. Bednar statue. That's my prediction. So we'd love to hear yours.
Wait a second. Is this AI?
Oh, no. No, I have this in my backyard.
This is AI. No. This is AI.
It's totally AI. Are you kidding?
Your AI is getting really good. I got to tell you.
It's taken me 1,000 times to get. I'm seriously. It took me like an hour to get this. So you wouldn't
Doesn't
believe
it. All look like
at first
David
I said
Bednar.
lizard man in a suit. They were hilarious.
It hasn't really captured the reptilian aspect.
No, I did. I put lizard man in a suit. Maybe I'll have to post those on the newscast Facebook page. They were pretty funny. But anyway, so that's all I have.
I'll bet you're right. It's going to be David Bednar.
That's what I thought, but they're going to unveil it, big ceremony. I think devotionals are typically at 11 o'clock. So by noon, we should know. Everybody check all of our social medias. We'll let you know.
What about President Eyring?
I thought about that too. Maybe a fountain, where they have tears.
Two Grecian
that kind of come out with a,
like Bill's doing. Trickle, trickle.
Or I also thought perhaps President Holland, because was he the one that was supposed to speak there? And that was SUU. Anyway, it could be any of them. I have no idea what it's going to be.
Would it surprise you if it was President Nelson getting a statue of himself before he even passed away?
Nope, not at all.
I like it.
Not one bit.
Okay, so Rebecca, you're down for Elder Bednar. Bill's down for President Nelson. I'm hanging out there a distant third with Pinecker.
Yeah. Steve deserves the statue, and his mom too. They both do. That would be fun. I'd go visit that statue. So anyway, that's all I have. And then I think back to Bill, and if we want to talk about what's coming up in the week.
RFM, what are we doing Wednesday for Mormonism Alive?
Thank you. What we're doing Wednesday is we are having a 30-year commemoration. We're going to be observing and commemorating the ghost of excommunication past with Brent Metcalf. And we're going to talk about those memories. We're going to be joined by John DeLynn. And not only that, we also are going to talk with him about his most significant contribution to Mormon studies. And in fact, some think it is the most significant contribution to at least Book of Mormon studies. and that is his Mosiah priority theory that he came up with. And he'll talk a little bit about the evidence it's based on. It's almost universally accepted at this point by everybody, Mormons, non-Mormons alike. And that is that when Joseph Smith came back to translating the Book of Mormon after losing the 116 pages and 8 months goes by, in which he may or may not have worked on the plot of the book. He restarts the translation in April of 1829 with Mosiah. Technically a couple chapters in, but basically with the Book of Mosiah, works his way all the way to the end, then comes back around with Nephi, Second Nephi, Jacob, up to the point where he stopped at, or started at the beginning of Mosiah. That's the Mosiah priority. And it has a lot of implications for the Book of Mormon and also for its authorship. Oh, right. Sorry.
Nope.
That was all I had. And I'm sorry, everybody. I'm acting like Bill's in charge because I'm well trained, but actually I'm in charge.
Even I thought Bill was in charge. I said, back to you, Bill. Oh my gosh, we're so scattered.
Well, he gave it to me at the top of the show. Remember, he was going to be in charge.
That must be what it is.
Then I pulled an Alexander Haig on him.
We're all in charge.
We're all in charge together and see how well that's working.
Yeah, no, it's not working.
So did you, Rebecca, did you have anything you wanted to announce like tomorrow night, perhaps for Mormonish or your book club or anything?
Yeah, and I have to say that the Mosiah priority, that everybody tune in, that is a groundbreaking, mind-blowing, pivotal moment when that was discovered. So we have our episode of Mormonish always on Tuesday night at 6 p.m. We have Anthony Miller, and he's going to talk about biblical scholarship, answering the question, does biblical scholarship threaten restorationist scripture? He is amazing. It's really good. Landon and I we hardly made a sound. We just stared at him because he was brilliant. So anyway, tomorrow night, Tuesday, 6 p.m. Mountain Time.
Thank you so much. And Bill, do you want to talk at all about Friday?
Well, yeah, we'll have Mormonism After Dark at 8 p.m. I thought the last episode was deeply entertaining. If folks missed that, the reincarnated Joseph Smith called us and implored to us that he was once again working upon the earth. And so you can check out last week's episode on the Mormon Discussion channel. Check out this week's Mormonism After Dark. You never know who's going to call in. Friday, 8 p.m. And then I also wanted to just give you another second, RFM. You and Kobe Reddish just released an episode on Radio Free Mormon, part 3 of your dissection of the Truth and Light letter. Anything you want to say about that?
Thank you. A lot of people are really, really liking this because the Light on Truth letter is the newest thing in the apologist arsenal. It's being run up the flagpole at all the usual locations. The usual suspects with their podcasts are saying how wonderful it is and how it's that silver bullet for the old CES letter, I think is what they say. So what Colby and I are doing is we're just a couple lawyers putting our heads together and looking at stuff and doing some research and finding how when you actually take the time to analyze what's in this Light on Truth letter, that's when you realize it's Light on Truth. So not a lot of truth there, a lot of deception, a lot of half-truths, a lot of saying only the part that benefits you and then not mentioning anything else, which is almost like the nose of the camel under the tent, right? All he shows you is the nose and the camel is still outside the tent. So we're doing that. We're having a lot of fun, and we'll go on the 4th part here. That should be released next Saturday. We haven't done it yet. We haven't recorded it yet. We're still working on it. And I am shocked. I got to tell you, shocked when it comes to Nahum about all the stuff that I learned when I was an apologist and all the stuff I thought I knew and all the stuff the apologists weren't telling me that I am now finding out really kind of for the first time as I'm researching this bare bones claim that Austin 5 put in his Light on Truth letter time after time. And I'll go over all of that in the next episode. By the way, we're going to keep it down to 2 hours now is our goal. I think we've proven that we can go over 4 hours on any given chapter. So we have made our bones there, but now we got to think about the audience and just try and keep it down to 2 hours. So that's it. Anything else from anybody before we close this show out? That's it. It's the Mormon Newscast. Once again, today's date, December 9th, 2024. It was a new introduction to the Book of Mormon as the top story. Thank you, Rebecca Biblioteca, for joining us. Thank you, Bill Reel, for joining us, and thank all of you out there for joining us. Please join us again next Monday for another episode of the Mormon Newscast.
Right.
President Russell M. Nielsen here, prophet, seer, and revelator. That's a wrap for this week's edition of the Mormon Newscast. We appreciate you tuning in and sharing this time with us. Keep the conversation going and stay informed on all things Mormonism. Until next week, wishing you peace and joy. See you next Monday at 6 p.m. on the Mormon Newscast. And please, my dear brothers and sisters, stay on the covenant path.